Hi friends, I'm in a little bit of a different position today, and that's because I'm in front of my computer, and today's video is going to be me ranking all 130 or 131 books I have read in 2024. So let's just hop right into it. So my computer monitor is to my left, and I have loaded up every single book I have read in 2024. And we are going to be ranking them. Now, at the very topmost tier is going to be My Last Meal. This is the book I want to read. This is the book that I am thinking about. This is by far one of my favorite books. Next up, we have Bread and Butter, a staple for me. I love carbs. I absolutely will eat a stick of butter. My butter to bread ratio is not okay. My arteries are calling for help, but it is a staple and I absolutely love it. So Bread and Butter, decent read. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I don't have much qualms about it. Do I consistently think about it though? Kind of debatable. As for Melted Iced Coffee, it's as the name suggests, it's a melted iced coffee. It's not particularly the best. It's not the way I prefer to drink my coffee, but I'll still drink it because it still has the residual flavors that I enjoy in a coffee. And then at the fourth rank, we have questionable flavors, meaning it didn't really mix together very well. There's just something off about it, and I'm not quite sure I enjoy it. Then we have cough medicine. Do we really like cough medicine though? I don't. I actually hate grape and cherry because of it, but it's good for you. So as the name suggests, these read might not be the easiest read or the most enjoyable, but it serves a purpose. Now, the final one on the list is Rather Starve, which kind of sums up I shouldn't have read it, or it should have been a DNF, or it is a DNF. Now, let's just dive right in. We have 130 some books. Here's a quick overview of all of them. I'm probably not going to remember everything about all of this, so I'm scared. I'm kind of a little bit intimidated. This is the first video in a while where I don't have a true script as well. So yeah, let's begin. All right, the first one up is I Swear We're Just Friends. I think this one is a solid melted iced coffee. It's good. It's not particularly bad, but I think there could be more sustenance to the story. So melted iced coffee. A Sea of Monster is kind of the same. I think the way I describe the Sea of Monster is that it felt very filler-esque. Like it's an adventure and it's gapping between point A and point B, which needs to exist, but it still felt like a little bit of a filler. Next up, we have Love Light Farms. I'm gonna put this at melted iced coffee. I have a whole reading vlog on it. It's good, but it could be better. Now we have M Butterfly. It's a play, and honestly, I really enjoyed it. I think I'll put it in my last meal. This book, I read it in college, and I remember writing an essay about it, but I don't remember why, but it left a lasting impression on me, and I did a reread earlier this year, and I really enjoyed it. It definitely has a lot of social commentary about how the West views the East, and how the East, even the men, are inherently feminine, and how it's viewed. And it's portrayed in this play called M Butterfly, which is supposed to be a parody of Madame Butterfly, which was created in the West, portraying the East, but then the author took it and recreated a parody of it in this essence, and how the East is able to fool the West with its femininity. And I just thought it was a really good read overall. So I believe in my rapid fire book tag, I recommended this play, and I still do, and I feel like I don't recommend it enough. Moving right along, we have Beach Read. It's a solid melted iced coffee. It's not my favorite Emily Henry book, but it's still pretty good with the sustenance and the events and actions that happen in the book. The romance wasn't my favorite, but I really like how she dealt with grief and her growth in this book. Moving right along, we have Not That Bad, which is a collection of short stories or essays depicting rape culture, and I'm gonna put it in cough medicine. The stories are really rough and heartbreaking and tragic, and it's not an easy read, but I think it's definitely needed and necessary. So in the cough medicine category, it's a 5, but it is a lot to take in. Moving right along, we have the friend zone, landing in our very first spot of Rather Starve. I have a whole video with spoilers as to why I think this is in the Rather Starved category, aka DNF. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, which is kind of sad because this is one of the first Abby Jimenez books that I had to DNF, but it's okay. It just really goes to show how much she's grown as an author, and I can really appreciate Abby Jimenez as an author for that. Then in a similar note, we have Abby Jimenez, The Situationship. It's good, but it's so short. I feel like there wasn't anything everything to it. Questionable flavors. I feel like you have to really like the two characters that were depicted in the story to really enjoy the story. And honestly, the two leads didn't catch my eyes in their original book, Part of Your World and Just for the Summer, and I just didn't expect them to even be together whatsoever. So questionable flavors. Then we have He Found Me. He found his way into the trash. I didn't like this. This is a dark mafia romance. It's riddled with spelling errors, mistakes, and I remember distinctly researching about this, and it seems like her editor just missed all of this. So I feel bad for the author, but I did end up DNFing it because the pacing and the characterization wasn't the best. Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck is a classic book, and Rather Starve. Then we have 1984, which goes into cough medicine. Genuinely, in today's day and age, in our current world right now, I highly recommend you guys reading 1984. Is it particularly enlightening? Yes. Is it good in terms of pacing and keeping your interest? Absolutely not. But the scene and the mundaneness and the restriction that 1984 depicts is just so scary watching what's happening right now in America. And it's cough medicine. It's really bitter. It's hard to take down, but it has good sustenance. The same goes with White Tears, Brown Scars. I felt like this book, I had to bite through teeth and nail through this book, and it was really hard to continue on with it because of the heavy subject, but I really like how she presented it and how she portrayed people of colors and their struggles due to white feminism and the examples she gave. I really liked it. So cough medicine, it was kind of difficult to get through. I feel like this is just kind of on brand. Books that make you think, feel, and empathize, those are going to be hard to take down, and I feel like this is going to be a trend. Moving right along, we have Check and Mate, Questionable Flavors. This is Ali Hazelwood's first YA romance. It's fine, but I didn't like how the male lead kind of just stalked the crap out of her just because she beat him in a chess game, which is funny because I think that wouldn't be creepy if you're a full-blown adult, but two YA kids, not for me. Now Powerless. Powerless is bread and butter. Listen. I can take criticism on this choice, but when I read it, the only thoughts I had about this book was that it's a 5 stars and I'm gonna keep it like that. Do I think it's my last meal though? Absolutely not. Now for The Perfect Marriage, it's definitely between Questionable Flavors and Rather Starve. I'm gonna put it in Questionable Flavors, but it's really far down the road in this one. It was good in the sense that there is a twist, and if you read through the lines, it makes sense and it points out. And I love how idiotic the husband is. So I don't hate it. I kind of quite enjoyed it, really. Like Geneva Rose, like the story that she wrote in The Perfect Marriage was just enough for me to be entertained to keep it at a 3 stars. So you know what? You can stay in Questionable Flavors. Man, I'm already regretting this. I still have so many to go through. Whew, all right. I think I'm yapping a little bit too much too, so I'm gonna try to keep it concise. Martha Wells, All System Red. I believe this is the first book, so I'm gonna put it in Melted Iced Coffee. It was good. It was quick, easy to digest, and my first sci-fi. So this was really good to dabble into sci-fi. As for Part of Your World, also Melted Iced Coffee. I wasn't quite sure how much I would like Abby Jimenez, and this is my first book from Abby Jimenez. And the way the story started, depicting the guy with a beard. I'm sorry, I don't like men with a beard. Okay, so the male love interest is not for me, but I can appreciate the story in this one. So Melted Iced Coffee. Divorcee Dessert Cafe, Rather Starve. This is a manhwa. Do I know anything about it? No, I think I just read it on a whim and it wasn't that great. Villains Are Destined to Die. This is the webcomic, My Last Meal. I still think about this manhwa and this webcomic. I ate it up. I think this was a very well done isekai, which if you don't know what isekai is, it just basically means that whatever you're doing, whatever you're reading, you are transported into the world. This was a very well done one with integration to her life in the isekai world and also what happened in her real life world and why she was isekai. Like the explanation, usually the explanation is really bad, but the explanation for this one, I kind of quite enjoyed it. So My Last Meal, thoroughly enjoying it. Still reading the manhwa because it's currently ongoing. One of the season has finally come back after a little bit of a short break, so really excited. Then we have The Queen of Nothing. This is the 3rd book of the Cruel Prince trilogy. I really liked it, honestly. Oh, I feel like this isn't fair. It's like between Bread and Butter and Melted Iced Coffee. I'll put it in the front. The Queen of Nothing isn't my absolute favorite, but I really liked how everything played out and wrapped up in The Queen of Nothing. I think it's Bread and Butter. Yeah, I think it's Bread and Butter. Yeah. Then we have, I don't know what volume this is. This is the fourth volume of Villains. No, this is the fourth volume of the Seventh Loop Villainous. I'm trying to remember what this is. This is the light novel, and I believe this focuses on the twins. Melted Iced Coffee. It's good. I think I liked this volume enough. Do I remember anything much about it aside from the fact that there were twins? No. With manhwas and mangas, you're gonna see a trend where I try to include all the volumes and then I'm gonna struggle to rank them. So enjoy that. We have Butcher and Blackbird, Bread and Butter. That was so good. It was one of my dark romances read of 2024, and I really, really liked Butcher and Blackbird. Butcher and Blackbird was able to add some comedy into the story to make the dark scenes not as intimidating, but it is still a dark romance. It's not like the super, super dark ones, but it's still moderately dark about two serial killer. I did wish there was a little bit more backstory on Blackbird, but I think I'm gonna continue on to the second and the third book in this trilogy. I literally said I wasn't gonna yap much, and then I'm continuing to yap. Skin of a Sinner. I think it's Melted Iced Coffee. Skin of a Sinner is a true dark romance, and it's a recommendation from another booktuber, a dark romance booktuber. And oh my god, it was dark. I guess I didn't expect how dark the MMC could be, so I think I didn't vibe with him 100% completely, especially since he could have just resolved the majority of the situation if he just given her the stack of papers he found when he murdered her whole family. And yes, he did murder her whole family, but they were abusive to her, and they weren't really her family. Then we have A Cruel Winter with You, Bread and Butter. This is a novella, and something about this novella just hits in all the right way. Ali Hazelwood did it really well with this one. Then we have the fourth volume of The Seventh Loop Villainous. This is the manga, and I actually really like this one. This one was where they were going to get their ring made, and I really like their adventure going out to be civilians, checking out the townspeople, checking out the markets, and then her choosing the gem that she wanted for her ring. I really like that one. Caravel is a Rather Starve. I hated this. I absolutely hated this. I thought her sister was the Lulu. Highest Bidder, also Rather Starve. I did not like that at all whatsoever. Absolutely. It was supposed to be dark romance, BDSM, kinky, but why are we adding trauma into it? It was like really forced trauma into it as well, so I couldn't get comfortable reading it, and it was the MMC was just not it. The third volume of The Seventh Loop Villainous, I'm gonna give it Melted Iced Coffee. I think this is still new and we were still being introduced to her story and her life. So yeah, Melted Iced Coffee sounds about right. I quite enjoyed this one because this is when you learned about her first life and all of her actual skills. So you got to know quite a bit about her in this one. Moving right along, we have the first volume of The Broken Ring, My Last Meal. This is probably my favorite regression story. There's just so much depth to the story. The artwork is beautiful. I am so biased, but I absolutely love this manhwa, and I also recommend it, but it is very dark. Check the trigger warnings. And yeah, now we have Villains Are Destined to Die. I don't know which volume this is. Let's do it with the first volume. The first volume is Melted Iced Coffee. The first volume was good, but also it was kind of slow, and the way it was set up because she isekai'd into a video game. So she got reborn into a video game as another character. It was kind of unique with the prompt selection and everything, but it did make the story a little bit slow. And also her family and everyone around her was just quite questionable, and how they resolved that was also kind of questionable. So maybe it should be in questionable flavors, but I think the first volume should be in questionable flavors, yeah. Or rather the first season. The second season though, let me try to find the second season because I ate up the second season. Yeah, okay, so the second season, Bread and Butter. I think the second season is when we meet the Crown Prince. My Last Meal. So to kind of set the scene, she kind of got reborn into a video game where it is initially a game where you have like 7 different love interests that you can romance, and the Crown Prince is one of them. And I really enjoyed the interaction with the Crown Prince. That was really good. Now the third one I also really enjoyed. I don't remember much about the arc, but I think it had enough sustenance that also clocked me on how many times I'm using the word sustenance. Like, I don't know why that word is stuck in my head today, but that's the word I'm going to describe every single book, I guess. But this one had a lot of meat. So the third season, definitely awesome, amazing, spectacular. The fourth season, oh my god. The fourth season, My Last Meal. The fourth season is when the climax has climbed to the top and everything is gonna come tumbling down in season 5. Season 5 just came back and I'm so excited to read it. I'm so excited. I can't tell you guys anything about it because it'll be a spoiler, but I'm so excited for it. I feel like this is kind of like already a biased rating. Like, look at this. My last meal is an M Butterfly and then 3 of the same manhwa, and then I'm pretty sure the other volumes of The Broken Ring will eventually make its way up here. But let's talk about Ruthless Nights. Questionable flavors? Questionable flavors. This one had a lot of good representation. However, it is YA, or it focuses on, I guess, like 18-year-old like seniors in high school, and I think they were just too young for me, so I didn't quite enjoy it because a lot of the events that are happening, they're very high school life events, and as an adult seeing those scenes with all the hardships and everything, it's kind of questionable flavors, but I think that the author executed pretty well, so I liked it, but I didn't like love it. Bride is melted iced coffee. You know, it's good, but it could give a little bit more. I felt like it was a little bit too hyped up, especially in the romance community about ABO and like all these high expectation going in. And I'm like, I'm a fanfiction AO3 reader. This is not ABO. I get it. It's kind of a lot, but also this is not even touching like barely the surface. This is just normal mating things. Moving right along, we have Enemies with Benefits. This is should have DNF. I actually don't remember much about the story. I don't think I really enjoyed it. So I got this for free on Apple Books. I read it. It was good. I think I liked it enough at the time. It was like a 3 stars. But looking back, I don't like the setting. I don't like the struggles that they're going through. And I don't like how things are happening in the story. And then this whole thing just, I don't know. Yeah, rather starve. Evelyn, husband of Evelyn Hugo. Melted iced coffee. It was between melted iced coffee and bread and butter, but I think it's melted iced coffee. I really enjoyed what happened at the end there. Like I didn't know what to expect at the end, but I liked it. I really liked it. And I like just listening to her stories and the different phases in life and how the author was able to weave in some social events and how Evelyn had to deal with it with her sexual identity. So I quite enjoyed that, but I don't know. It just, well, it stuck to my mind. I just think that I wasn't in a mood for this book, so I wasn't particularly like, wow, this is so great, so amazing. I enjoyed it all the way through, even though I liked it. Then we have I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Bread and Butter. So this was my first autobiography, and this is an actress that I'm familiar with on Nickelodeon, and I just picked it up on a whim because it was available through my Spotify Premium, and I really enjoyed it. I like her cadence, her voice, her storytelling. I like the seriousness of the topic that she discussed, but she doesn't make us feel bad for her for it, but she's just making a statement that these things happen to me, and these are kind of the consequences of being a child actress. Really enjoyed the story, definitely highly recommend it. On a similar note, we have Sociopath. Same vibes. I enjoyed the author, the narrator for this. I enjoyed learning more about psychopathy and how she's trying to interweave herself into the world. Also a very enjoyable memoir. I think this was recommended to me by Ellen at the Ellen Made Book Club. And then we have Notes on an Execution. I should have DNF'd it. I really should have DNF'd it. It was good, but it wasn't well done. I think it was a little bit too stretched out. I felt like it had the potential of being melted iced coffee, but it was just so hard to go through, especially the phase when we're focusing on the police officer, the female police officer. What the story basically focuses on is kind of like duality of like the people who go into the system and how they can just, their path can completely diverge. And in this story, they kind of reconnect back together in this aspect, but the route along to get there took a bit, and I think this is all supposed to come into commentary of the execution and what we should think about it, but the author really kind of kicked it around the bush, and I just don't really know what their stance is in this book, but I do know it's supposed to be commentary on the death row itself. So yeah, I think rather starve. It took me quite a bit of time to get through this. I will applaud her for the way she's able to describe smells and things because it's so gross and vivid, and it's a great writing. Like genuinely, I think it's great writing. The plot just didn't kept me interested long enough. Moving right along, we have a Better Than the Movies, Melted Iced Coffee. Listen, it's very in between melted iced coffee and questionable flavors, but I'll go with melted iced coffee because of how it all wrapped up and how it ended. But I will say, the first 25% of the story, I was like, I don't know if I'm vibing with this because again, it's a YA book with a lot of YA romance and with a lot of like YA scenarios. So I just feel kind of out of it because I'm so old now. But once I kind of got into the groove and the chaoticness of the female lead, I'm here for it. So it's Melted Iced Coffee, low on that bar in questionable flavors. The next one is What My Bones Know, My Last Meal. This particular memoir, I felt like I could relate to and connect to on so many different levels. And I think it had a lot to do with just our identity. And I really like the statistics and everything that she interweaves into the story. One key point that really stood out to me is how our DNA can literally be altered due to traumatic events and we can pass it on to our children. And I also really enjoyed her inclusion of the audio clips from her own therapy appointments. I thought that was really a refreshing take. And also you get to really hear the events and occurrence of her getting this diagnosis and her trying to navigate through it. So given that I grew up in the Bay Area, I definitely have brought up this book as well to my friends. So My Last Meal, definitely something that I think about. Then we have Clytemnestra. I'd rather starve. Like, I have a whole video talking about how much I didn't really enjoy Clytemnestra, and I think that and Caramel were in the same video. It was just not it for me. And I felt like this felt like a very true retelling, but it lacked the creativity of filling in the gaps and filling in the blanks because the author really just skipped from all her major life events and kind of giving us the story of Clytemnestra without fluffing it up, which I feel like we needed in a retelling. Otherwise, I felt like I could just go on to like Wikipedia and read it if I really wanted to. So that's how I felt with this book. A Touch of Darkness. I really liked it. I surprisingly thoroughly enjoyed A Touch of Darkness. I did wish, however, the ending got stretched out into the second book because now I have no need to continue on with the series. Like, I don't think I'm gonna continue on with the series. I think this is a very good standalone on itself. I wish we had a little bit more angst, a little bit more brooding and groveling from Hades, but overall, really enjoyed the character growth of Persephone as well. The Dragon's Republic, though. I really like The Dragon's Republic. I think that's probably my favorite book of the three, and this one is the strongest enemies to lovers. But I just saw Melanie's video on this, and she absolutely hates Neja for what happened at the end of The Dragon's Republic, and I'm like, yes, give me more. Neja and Rin, like, I need that, like, dynamic. It was so great. I loved it, and I really like this push and pull tension in The Dragon's Republic with them, even though it's, like, so subtle, and there's, like, a crumb, not even a crumb, like, I'm just imagining crumbs. And then we have One for My Enemy, A Questionable Flavor. I wanted to love this so much because so many booktubers love it, but I just couldn't get into the writing. It had the play essence and the tempo of a play, of a Shakespeare play, and the story was interesting enough, but I felt like I couldn't ground myself in the story. So Questionable Flavor, You Shouldn't Come Here should have been in Rather Starve. I don't know why I picked it up. Genuinely, I was just browsing my Libby and this was available. I picked it up. I should have looked for the review for this, but this book gave me a whiplash. I genuinely thought it was a romance at first. Genuinely. And then the ending was just, she was trying too hard with that ending, in my honest opinion. Okay, the moving right along, we have King of Sloth, Melted Iced Coffee. I mean, I feel like this is kind of the vibe with all of the Anna Huang books. They're good. They're billionaire romance. I know exactly what to expect in them. It's good. It's great. Predictable. I do think I ranked this one higher than the others because I felt like there was a lot more characterization between the male lead and the female lead in this one compared to maybe King of Wrath. Us Against You by Frederick Bachman. Bread and Butter. This is the second book of the Beartown trilogy. Was it necessarily needed? No, but it's really there to kind of tell us that things happen after the event of the first book, and this is how a town heals and come together. So good. That one was so good, and the commentary making me, clocking me in my own internal biases, spectacular. Not the Billionaire should be in Rather Starve. This is the blandest romance I have ever read. Like, it felt so vanilla and YA and simple. I'm like, if I'm reading a billionaire romance, I need him to embody that billionaire. I don't want him to just beat around the bush like this. Where is that CEO energy? So you see how powerless it's up here? Yeah. Reckless, what were you doing? Reckless, what is this? Reckless, you didn't need it. You didn't need to have existed. Reckless was literally us running around in a literal circle, okay? We have like our MMC chasing after the FMC. They're literally chasing each other in a circle, and the same thing happens again and again. And I'm not saying that didn't happen in Powerless, but it was just not the right time to be listening to Reckless. Like it didn't hit. Like I just got so fed up with it. The Risk was so good. The Risk was a dark romance, serial killer meets FBI agent, and they start dating, and he's tracking her down. Like it's good. Now moving on to How to Win My Husband Over. Which one? I think this is season 1, right? I don't even know if I'm on season 1 or season 2. Let me see. Yeah, okay. Season 1 was kind of slow. Questionable flavors. I felt like it was also like setting up how the character came to be, and they kind of just forgotten about her, to be quite honest. Like forgotten like her roots and her origin for this. So it's definitely questionable. It's also a little bit dark with her scenes and everything with her and the family that she lives with, and then her being arranged to marry this duke. So questionable flavors. I think this one's a little bit high up. It could be between the two. Then we have the first book of The Reason Why Raeliana is at the Duke's Mansion or something like that. This one is in Melted Iced Coffee. I think I'm gonna have to put all of them in there. Let me try to find the rest, because I genuinely can't break it down to you guys. Like I wouldn't be able to know to break it down to y'all, because this book flew by so fast. Is it 3? I thought there were 4 volumes. Okay, maybe it was 3. I thought there was 4. Yeah, this one there's definitely 4. I don't know why. All right, whatever. Whatever. All right. Oh, I did find it. Okay. I will say they did introduce a second male lead interest, and it kind of went nowhere with that. And I wish he just would have just accepted the word no, because Raeliana was actually really upfront, be like, no, I'm not interested. And I was kind of icked out at that one. I don't even know which book it'll be. I assume it's the 3rd book. Put it down there. Yeah, that one was probably questionable, but the rest of the series was a solid 4 stars for me, and I really enjoyed it. Happy Place is bread and butter. It was my first Emily Henry book, and I really enjoyed it. I like the characterization. I like the character growth in the friendship group and the friendship dynamic, and how they all confronted each other with what was happening and how that all expanded. I will say the romance in this is definitely a back burner, but it was just enough for me to enjoy the rest of the series and enjoy the friendship moments in the book. Next up, we have Two Can Play, and I will say this is questionable flavors. This one wasn't my favorite Ali Hazelwood book, but it wasn't the worst. I just felt like it was really quick, and because the format was audio only, I also think that impacted my enjoyment of the book, because I think I do prefer reading Ali Hazelwood books over listening to it, and this being a novella just didn't have a lot of meat to it. You just have to really love the characters when you're first introduced to them, and I couldn't really connect with them, even though I'm a programmer and I love video games. So it's kind of it was kind of weird, but I also think it might just because I listened to it on audiobook. Next up, I have The Cruel Prince, questionable flavors. Listen, I enjoyed The Queen of Nothing and The Wicked King, but The Cruel Prince was so hard for me to get into. It was just so slow, and maybe because I listened to it on audiobook, but it just didn't hit hard until the last 75% of the book. I have a whole reading vlog where I was just hating on Carden and Jude, and then all of a sudden the next reading vlog, I finally finished The Cruel Prince, and I'm like, oh my god, I understand the hype now, and proceeds to pick up the 2nd and 3rd book of the trilogy. So questionable flavors. It could have been better, but you know what? It's the journey that counts. Next up, we have Leave Me Be. Why did I finish this? This one wasn't even good. I can't even tell you. Like, manhwas tend to have a very specific trope. Like, Leave Me Be tried to be these top tier up here, but it really wasn't. It wasn't good. Next up, we have Emily Henry. Ooh, is it bread and butter or melted iced coffee? I think bread and butter, because I love how petty they are. I love that they got together just to piss off their exes. That was great. That was beautiful. I was really frustrated about the miscommunication, but it was resolved well enough. I will say I really wish Daphne took some time to herself to learn to love herself, learn to be independent and have friends outside of the MC instead of just going into a relationship right away, even though it was stated in the book that she spent the majority of her adult life with this one guy and then she immediately gets into a relationship with this other guy. So that is probably the one thing I would change from the book, which is probably why it's between these two. And now that I've talked about it, I think it's in Melted Iced Coffee. It's good. I just wish it was just a little bit better. I feel like this is not getting any less. It's 12 a.m. so I'm gonna try to quickly continue this. This is the 7th Loop Villainous Volume 6 manga. I think this one goes into Melted Iced Coffee. This has a scene that I particularly liked. Then we have Blue Flag Volume 5. Let's grab all of the Blue Flag volumes actually, because I don't know if I remember everything. I have to be honest. Like I know the general gist of the plot, but I don't think I would be able to tell you when things ended and when things starts. So I'm gonna quickly reorganize this. I think I'm only missing number 3 now. Okay, let's start with the 8th volume was Questionable Flavors for sure. I love these characters so much, so when I ended up giving a review, I think I was really generous with my review, but I didn't like how the ending was created. It suddenly switched to second person and I didn't like that. That was really weird for me. So Questionable Flavors for sure. This book was definitely a slow burn, but I will say I don't remember distinctly if it was volume 6 or 7 that was really good, but I think I'm just gonna say one of those volumes was spectacular. It really depicts and portrayed the relationships and the friendships in the circle and just a very human and realistic experiences of someone who got their identity exposed. And then there's also the dynamics of a female being in a predominantly male friend group. There was also discussion surrounding that. I think this author does a really good job tackling a lot of these topics, and I believe it was volume 6 and 7 that did those. So I'm gonna put those into the last meal category. I really enjoyed it, but I don't know where I have no idea where the 7th volume is, so here it is. So I'm gonna put those two at the top. The first volume is Melted Iced Coffee. It was a little bit slow to get in, and you're just learning about the characters, so a little bit of a slow start. But everything else, I don't know, man, I really love them. Everything else I'm gonna put in bread and butter. After you kind of got to know these characters, you just can't help but feel like you're an older sister and they're coming to you for advice and they're showcasing you their life and their choices. And I really like that. I think the author did a really good job portraying it, except for the very last volume, volume 8, kind of questionable. Moving on to The Broken Ring, I'm gonna go, this is the first volume I think, and I'm gonna go with Melted Iced Coffee. The first volume is a little bit slow and you're just being introduced to the characters. Again, I feel like this is the vibes I get from the very first volume generally, is that it's a little bit slow, it's good, but I wouldn't say that I would go back and reread this volume. This one in particular is the light novel, so it goes a lot slower than the manhwa itself. So I put the manhwa up here, which is the first season, and the first season is, I think, encompasses a lot more than the first volume of a light novel for sure. Father, I Don't Want This Marriage, I'm putting it in my last meal. I'm gonna put it in my last meal because Regis was the father of this manhwa. Like the author knew who to focus on, and they ate with the characterization of Regis. I'm just saying, it really should be in bread and butter, but I'm gonna put it in my last meal. We're gonna keep going, and I think this is volume 3 of the 7th Time Loop Villainous. I'm gonna go with Melted Iced Coffee. It's good, but doesn't stand out in my mind. We have There Is No Ethan, Rather Starve. This did not give anything. I thought it would be a lot more scary with like more modern tech, but it isn't really modern tech at all. It really is dated, especially given that this is like OkCupid era, so it wasn't the right fit. I think I got catfished by this book. Moving right along, we have King of Pride, bread and butter. Kai Young is my favorite of all of the King of Sins at the moment, mainly because he's British, but also he's a gentleman, and also, I don't know, I really vibed with his story. Then we have Ruthless Vows, bread and butter. I really liked how the series ended. It is a little bit fast, but because it's a duology, I can understand. I wish there was a little bit more angst to the beginning, but maybe that's just the masochist in me asking for that. Then we have the second volume of the 7th Time Loop Villainous. I don't remember much about this one. Maybe Questionable Flavors. I don't remember much about this. It didn't really spark my interest. So I'm gonna put it in questionable flavors, mainly because I don't remember much about that. Same thing with the sixth volume. The sixth volume, I actually remember what happened because we just read it very recently in December, and it was all right. I just didn't particularly care about these two characters that were focused in this volume, so sorry, buddies. You're gonna go into questionable flavors. Charming the Duke of the North, rather starve. In fact, I think I DNF'd this because it was so inconsistent. I don't even know what there were just so many inconsistency to this that I just DNF'd it because I couldn't continue on with this inconsistency. Then we have, I don't even remember the name of this one. Okay, so this is Positively Yours, and this, okay, so if we can kind of stack these together, these were off the high of Father, I Don't Want to Get Married. I was so desperate. Wait, hold up. Like, I was so desperate to find something that I'd enjoy as a manhwa, so I read a lot, back to back, back to back. It wasn't good. It wasn't it. I don't know what else to say. Then we have Fourth Wing. I really liked Fourth Wing. It's my first fantasy book that was really, really heavy on the fantasy with the introduction of dragons and magic. Like, we have, we had Powerless. Like, I think from the list so far, we have Powerless, but then we have, like, Bride and The Cruel Prince. So they're kind of magic adjacent fantasy, but I think Fourth Wing is what I would consider, like, full-blown over-the-top fantasy, and I really enjoyed it. I love the sassy dragons and the drama and the events that happens in the book, and I know you're gonna wonder what the but is. The but has to be, I don't know if I'm gonna continue on with the series. I just don't like how Onyx Storm was played out. Like, it was good, but then with the release of Onyx Storm, so was also a lot of comments about, like, the author herself, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with her, but for the sake of this video, I am gonna place it into bread and butter, malted iced coffee, bread and butter. It was good. Like, I can't deny the fact that I thought it was good. Now we have A Fugitive Telemetry. I don't remember. Okay, I'm gonna pull all of these together so I could figure it out. I don't remember which one is the second book and which one was the fifth book. No, it was the fifth book. I think Network Effect was the sixth book. I'm gonna assume it is the sixth book, and it was the last move. Oh my god, art, and Murderbot. Yes. Give me it all. So I think it's that, and is it Rogue Protocol? I think this is the sixth book. The sixth book I didn't really enjoy. The sixth book was, I felt like I liked it because I liked Murderbot, but it felt very disconnected. I really thought that after the fifth book, we were gonna continue following along with what the fifth book mentioned, but we just kind of hopped off that train and then did something else. So I was kind of taken back because I did it back to back really quickly. So I think that's a big reason why I felt that way, and that's why it's in questionable flavors. So then Rogue Protocol is what I'm gonna assume is the second book. It's either Rogue Protocol or Artificial Condition. I think it's Artificial Conditions, actually. So Artificial Condition. Again, assuming this is the second book with art, yes, love it. Love it, love them, love their interaction. Moving right along, we have Rogue Protocol and Exit Strategy. I don't remember much about either of them. Like, because the Murderbot Diaries is just a collection of novellas showcasing, like, our Murderbot running around, exploring, running into problems, trying to make ends meet, and just trying to not get captured. They're just all really fun. So I think I'm gonna put them into Melted Iced Coffee. Yeah. So the only ones that kind of really stand out are the two that interacted with art, Murderbot and art. And then the one that just I was taken back from was the sixth book, where I incorrectly assumed that we were gonna follow what happened in the fifth book, but it was still good. I just wasn't as invested into the story because of that. So I got another drink and we are going to continue on because I don't think this is ever gonna end. Yes, I mention that it was 12 a.m. This is probably why I can't sleep. No, this is definitely why I can't sleep. But we are on to our last leg of the ranking. We have Yours Truly. I loved Yours Truly. It was so good. I love the male lead in this one. I felt so represented in the male lead because he is genuinely me. Though I will have to be honest about the romance. It's all right. I didn't really like the miscommunication at the end. This one, comparing all three of the Abby Jimenez part of your world story, this one had the most miscommunication. So it might not be the best in terms of plot, but it is kind of an honorary best for me because of the representation of Jacob being an introvert and how he feels about being in crowded spaces and all of that. So I really, really liked this one as a whole. Then we have The Burning God. Like, I don't know if I should say it's my last meal or bread and butter. I think bread and butter. I think there still is room to improve with this, and you can really feel a lot of frustration about what happened in Burning God as well. But I just think the ending was well done. I didn't think there could be any other way of stopping what was going to happen. So Burning God, a solid bread and butter. I will just continue to eat it, continue to think about it, but it's not at the top of my mind and forcing me to go off to fanfiction to read about what happened like the Dragon Republic did. So I'm gonna move on to the Poppy War. Oh, what do I want to do about the Poppy War? I think it's in between melted iced coffee and bread and butter. To be genuinely honest, I think it's in between. It was really hard for me to get into, which is the first third of the book, which is part 1, before she even gets to the War Academy. But honestly, I really liked how things played out. So you know what? Bread and butter. Bread and butter. Mr. Wrong Number. I don't know. I don't know if I want to put it in Rather Starve or Melted Iced Coffee. Or questionable flavor. I think it's questionable flavors. I'm like trying to look at the rest of this. Like, honestly, this is the lowest ranking of all. Like, in terms of it, we would have to... Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna... Okay, yeah, we're not rearranging it. Like, ranking within the system itself, that's too much work. Now, Mr. Wrong Number was good. It had me cackling at moments. And then the ending, in literally like 15 pages, there was miscommunication, and then it blows up, and then it's all resolved. In 15 pages, like what there, why even add it in at that point? Why? Now, Love on the Brain, the famous Love on the Brain. Yeah, no, Allie Hazelwood, this is not your best work. Not your best work, if I have to say so myself. This is definitely her trying out new genres and trying to spice things up, and I did not like the spiciness in this one. I'm sorry, it was just not it. Best Enemies Forever though, Bread and Butter. This was read really early on in 2024, so I can't remember exactly, but I do recall some key moments that this is a really true rivals to lovers story. Like they are rivals, it makes sense for them to be rivals, and it wasn't miscommunication or anything like that. And also I think it has the fake marriage or accidental drunk marriage trope, which is also kind of fun to see. So honestly, I just really enjoyed this one. And moving on to My Dear Secret Agent. I don't think it's actually fair for me to rank this because technically I didn't finish it in 2024, but we're gonna go to Melted Iced Coffee. It's good. There's nothing much I can say except for I liked it. I liked how the story progressed. I really enjoyed the two male leads and their interaction. But again, because of the nature of the manga, I felt like there's a little bit left to desire to kind of see more of their relationship grow and for me to invest into them a little bit more. So Melted Iced Coffee. On to The Kiss Quotient. Melted Iced Coffee. I like Helen Huang's book a lot, primarily because of the Vietnamese representation, and also from what I've heard, she does autism rep really, really well as well, and the female lead in this one does have autism, but the story as a whole, I don't think it was the most spectacular. There is miscommunication trope in it, but between the spice and the Vietnamese rep, the autism rep, and just the progression of the romance, I ended up really enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would have. So really high praises. This one is also on the spicier side, if I recall correctly, and I liked the spice in this one as well. Then we have Just for the Summer, which goes into bread and butter. I don't really know much to say about this one, but I felt like the character depth in Just for the Summer was very well done. I liked the progression of their romance, and I felt like Just for the Summer did what I wanted to happen in Funny Story, which I really appreciated. Like, if that didn't happen, I think I would have ended putting it in Melted Iced Coffee, but because there was that time gap where she was working on herself, I appreciate it, and it went into bread and butter. Pachinko. I'm trying to think about Pachinko. I like the story, but it could definitely be slow at times. It's definitely between cough medicine and Melted Iced Coffee. I think Melted Iced Coffee. I really, really liked it because it really did showcase a portion of World War II in East Asia and everything that happened there, and Japan's colonization of Korea. I really like that. I really like the stories between all the families. My only one critique is that I felt like the ending was a little bit forced for the whole wraparound and reconnecting it to Pachinko. I felt like that was really, really forced. I didn't think it was quite necessary. And also I don't know if I really was satisfied with the ending, to be completely honest. But I liked the depiction of the East in World War II. I liked it showcasing kind of the Korean struggles as well. So it's still overall a decent read. There were just some parts where it was a little bit slow and the ending wasn't perfect. Beartown, on the other hand, oh my god. I waited too long to read Beartown. Like, I really like the way he writes. Genuinely, Frederick Boxman's way of writing and the way he's able to hit high marks all across the board with whatever kind of criteria you're ranking it on, unless it's like smut. Like this one hits high marks all around. I really love the story. I really love the call out, the social commentary, everything about it. Then we have the manhwa, The Broken Ring. I think this is season 2. I really liked season 1 and season 2. Like, season 1 and season 2 has so much in it, and this is the manhwa specifically. Like, these two are manhwa specifically, and I love it. I don't know what else to say. I talk about the series way too much. This one's probably ranked higher than the first one, to be completely honest. And again, we have anxious people on here. Okay, should I remove them? Because technically, in 2024, I didn't finish it. I didn't finish in 2024. I finished it literally in 2025 in January. So, you know what? I'm just gonna rank it anyways. Okay, Anxious People was really good. Anxious People did the exact same thing that Beartown did, but because his story is very character driven, I've heard that some people didn't really like the characters in Anxious People as much as the people in Beartown. Again, high marks all around, calling us out on our internal biases, able to talk about the social commentary, about the events that happened in the book, and the expectations that we all have versus the reality. And this is like the reality for a lot of people as well. So again, high marks all around. Not in Love, though, looking back, I think it's questionable flavor. Actually, I can't say that. Melted iced coffee. I wish I could say it was bread and butter, but it really wasn't. I don't think it really was that good in terms of plot and romance. It's very insta-lovey, but because I was in the mood for something quick, easy to digest, smut-filled, turn my brain off, it worked at the time. So I'm gonna go with Melted Iced Coffee. Alright, seriously, I don't know where to put The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, because I think about this book a lot, but I also hated the author. This has a lot of white knighting, and the author really inserted herself into the story, and I didn't like that at all. But I really like the conversation surrounding the lack of recognition for Henrietta and her contribution to science. I think I'm gonna put it in Melted Iced Coffee. Yeah, Melted Iced Coffee. I would recommend you read this just to know about Henrietta Lacks and her contributions, but I will always preface it with, this author sucks. Get it from your local library. Like, I still think it's a good read to read. I just don't like the insertion of herself. I really wish someone would go out and do another variation of it, but might not be possible. Then we have Love Theoretically, My Last Meal. This is my favorite Ali Hazelwood book. This book had me staying up till 3 a.m. because I was so emotional about the scene where the female lead starts booking it and running it in a snowstorm. That scene broke me and it hurt me, and it was so good. I really liked how everything played out in this book. Comma Interlude. Questionable flavors. Honestly, I really shouldn't even be this is when I try to include manga reads, and then I really shouldn't, because they're really short. It's really hard to talk about them, and this one was just questionable flavors. It's good, but I've read it already, and I like the artwork. But I think I mentioned this to my husband, that the reason why I didn't one-on-one connect with it, because for some reason, even though we are full-blown adults in the Fate Grand Order story, this one chose to depict them, or well, Kama puts them in a situation where they are high schoolers, like Japanese high schoolers, and they do like very high schooler things, and questionable flavors for me. It's like, you know, like Ruthless Night. We kind of have that problem, right? So yeah, questionable flavors. All right, we are nearing the end, so hopefully I can fit this all in the next 15 minutes. We have King of Wrath. Melted Iced Coffee. It's good. Anna Huang books are very solid tier good books, but I don't think they are necessarily spectacular. I think if you're looking for something like this will hit the mark, but it's not my last meal. And out of all the King of Sin series, I definitely love King of Pride the most. And then we have the first volume of The Seventh Loop Villainous, and I'm gonna put it in bread and butter. This one got me back into reading, really, like this series as a whole, so I can't not mention it, right? So this one really sets up the story. We got introduced to Arnold, and I was just really obsessed with Arnold. So one thing led to another, and here we are a year later, and I'm making booktube videos. So bread and butter, gonna give it to that one. It really should be my last meal, but I don't like it that much, guys. Like, genuinely, I don't like it that much. Next up, we have the 7-Year Slip. I liked it. I liked it a lot. Actually, I'm thinking back, I really enjoyed this romance. It's an interesting take on time travel, and it works. It really works. It has this element of magical realism where she gets transported in time back and forth. We kind of almost have second chances in this. And then just the jealousy, and the jealousy worked so well because it's still him and he's jealous of himself. Like, oh my god, it was really good. I really liked it. Moving right along, we have Divine Rivals. Bread and butter. I really like Divine Rivals. I didn't expect to enjoy it that much, to be quite honest. It's a YA magical realism kind of fantasy book with a historical war front, and I really liked it. I didn't expect to like it. It's very subplot romance as well. It's not subplot romance, but the romance isn't the driving force of the plot. There's still a good bit of plot to it and everything that's happening. So a very solid read as well. I think this was during the try to finish all my library books, and then I ended up everything I finished reading ended up being 5-star read. Let me see if I could call out those reads. It's Divine Rivals, Butcher and Blackbird, and then Sociopath. Yeah, I think it was those three in that reading vlog. It was a good time. It was a good time. Okay, now we have the first volume. Okay, now we're getting into the batch of the Seventh Loop Villainous. So I'm gonna group them all together so we could just quickly go through them. The sixth volume, I'm gonna go with Questionable Flavors. I think at this point, the specialness of the Seventh Loop Villainous by the sixth volume of the light novel has definitely worn off. The magicalness of enjoying it has definitely worn off. And it's a little bit rapidly fast and makes me question, like, you cannot literally get shot by something and then be up and running like the next week. The sixth light novel really clocked me in realization of how fast things were moving, and it didn't make sense. The author should have just stretched it out a little bit more. So Questionable Flavor. However, the first light novel is gonna have to go to bread and butter because I'm obsessed with the man. That's all I can say. I'm obsessed with the man. The second, or is it the third? The second one I also really liked because of the same reason why the fourth volume of the manga was my favorite, because they have the engagement ring scene in it, and I'm a sucker for sweet scenes. Bread and butter for that one. Now we have Front Desk. Bread and butter. So Front Desk is a middle grade book following a child immigrant and her struggles as an immigrant in America and how she overcame that. I really liked it. It's a very sweet story, very reminiscent of my own experiences, even though they are not identical to hers. But I think it was a good representation, and I appreciate the writer for this one. So bread and butter for sure. And then we have I'm the Tyrant's Secretary. It was so bad. I don't know what I was thinking. This one was, the male lead had nothing going on. I was on some copium because I really like the Crown Prince in Villains Are Destined to Die, and he looks kind of similar to the Crown Prince, but he has no charm, nothing at all. This gives the vibes of What's Wrong with Secretary Kim, the manhwa, or if you know the Korean drama, similar vibes, but way worse execution. I should have DNF'd it. Yeah, should have just DNF'd it. Oh, I missed one for the 7-time loop light novel. It's the 5th one. Again, I'm starting to realize that the time between all these novels just don't really make sense, and it's going a little bit too rapidly between these two novels, and so it's going into Questionable Flavors. I've stopped pre-ordering them, which is gonna be kind of awkward because I have up to 6 volumes of both of these on my bookshelf, but I think I'm gonna stop purchasing them for now just because I'm disappointed about the pacing of the book so far. Hopefully that'll change if I could get a copy somewhere like the library, but for now we are going to move on to How to Win My Husband Over season 2. I really liked season 2, actually. I really liked season 2, so let's put it in bread and butter. Where was season 1? Where did I even place season 1? Yeah, okay. Season 1 was questionable. Okay, that makes sense. So season 2, once I got invested into the story and into the characters, I started really enjoying the series as a whole. And I felt like the world building definitely expanded in the second season as well. So it bumped up all the way to bread and butter, and it's slowly becoming a manhwa and manga that I'm really enjoying. So bread and butter for that. Okay, now let's head on to the silent patient. Oh, this was a DNF originally, and then I don't know what came over me, and I was like, let's give it another chance. I was like, let's give this another chance. I shouldn't have given it another chance, because what in the absolute fuck was this? This was giving I Want to Be Gone Girl, but done so poorly. I did not enjoy it, and I also really didn't like the depiction of all the female characters in this. I'm just saying, the way the author writes female characters, I don't like it. Now, the Wicked King, I honestly, the Wicked King is top tier. This one should be all the way down here. Like, we're not really ranking based on where it resides, but if I had to put it against the Queen of Nothing, I love the Wicked King way more. This is truly when you get into the enemies to lovers territory. This is truly when all of that starts to happen. I just love Cardin in this one. This one was great. I did get really mad and upset about Jude's twin. I don't even remember her name at this point, but I just really remember being mad about it in this book. So bread and butter, probably like a 180 flip between The Cruel Prince to me seriously enjoying the series. It's like the first series I dabbled into, and through Lauren and Chris's recommendation, I continued on, and I'm so glad I did, because I ended up really loving the second and the third book, even though the first book was interesting. I do want to reread The Cruel Prince to see if my opinions on it change, or if I still think it's super slow, even after knowing the two characters very well, Jude and Cardin, and maybe I could get a little bit more backstory on them, because I felt like The Cruel Prince was read through a series of like 3 months, so it's not entirely fair. All right, now we are moving and heading on to all of the video game reads here. So I'm gonna adjust it around. Yeah, okay, let's just go through these really quick. This one, I'm going to say tutorial and world 1, bread and butter. I thought it was really good. I genuinely really liked the series as a whole. I really liked how things started out in the first world we encounter. The storyline was riveting enough, and the ending actually gave a little bit food for thought. There's actually like a fight in the Honkai Star Rail community over the decision that was made, and whether or not it was childish or it was bad, or if it was for the better of the community. So this one really had thought-provokingness to it. So bread and butter for sure. Then we move on to the second world, and I like the second world, but I didn't like it as much as the first world, I have to be completely honest. I don't remember much, but the twist, literally the twist, like you see a twist at the end, and it was good. It was good, but I don't think I liked it as much as the first world. And again, it lacked the thought-provokingness that the first world had. So I felt like the story in the first world definitely had a lot more depth to it. And then let's head on to this story. Is technically in between the next one, but it follows the events of the one that I just picked up, which is World 2. This one had a lot of story to it again. I really enjoyed this one. This one was a really good read. You get a lot of character backstory. You get to know more about the world itself. The world building in this one was fantastic. However, what do I want to do? Oh my god, all right, what do I want to do? I think Penacony was all questionable. Penacony was not it. It was so stretched out and it was so long, and I felt like it was mainly to sell characters. Like the story, while it resides in the same world, it felt like there was no continuousness of it. Like this one in particular, like you can move it away. Like this could happen 3 or 4 patches later, or in a completely different, what you would call a different book, and you wouldn't even feel the disconnect, to be quite frank, because they literally took us out of the POV we were following, dropped us into a completely other POV, and then when that story concludes, we are dropped back into the original main character POV and continued on with the story. So this one, questionable flavors all around. I liked it, but did I like it that much? I quite literally DNF'd this one. I didn't even read the storyline. This was brain rot to the max. It was bananas, literally bananas. And monkey, return to monkey. This embodies Return to Monkey, and I hated it. It was so it was so brainless. Like, what was that? I don't understand how the first world could be so good, and then this one was just, I don't know, man. I don't know what it was. All right, now moving right along, we have the villainess turns the hourglass, and I'm gonna go with melted iced coffee. Melted iced coffee. It's a good manhwa, all things considering. But this one didn't have romance in it. And I need my romance in my manhwas, to be quite honest. The story is actually pretty well done. The plot is pretty well done. There's a lot of depth to the plot, but I recall not enjoying it as much because there wasn't any romance. Hence, it is going into melted iced coffee. Then we have A Diary of a Young Girl. It's not cough medicine. This one was such a thought-provoking book and so real and raw because it really showcased the humanity of these people during the atrocity that Hitler did. And it was just so cruel, and it was so emotional, and I definitely thought about it, and I talked to my husband about it because as I was reading The Diary of a Young Girl, I was just like, oh my god, like she's literally just a kid. Everything she's talking about, she's a kid, and then she has to face all these things. And to know that, like, the ending, she was so close on being saved and she didn't make it, it's so heart-wrenching. Yeah. All right, so the next one up is Woman of Light. And this is my buddy read with Maria Andrea, and I'm gonna give this melted iced coffee. I recall enjoying it enough. However, because of the moving timeline, flipping back and forth, and the fact that I listened to it on audiobook, I definitely struggled with keeping up to pace. However, I did think that the commentary and the history behind indigenous people of the land was really enlightening. I really enjoyed the background and the history of that, but the ending did leave me wanting for more. There's no real conclusion or wrap up to the story or the wrap up of this Woman of Light of our main character. So I felt like that was really lacking at the end there. Now we have Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters. I'm gonna go with melted iced coffee. This was supposed to be a buddy read with my husband. He did read this one and we talked about it. I do remember being pleasantly surprised and enjoying this book more than I thought I would. The adventures were really action-packed and really quick-paced, and it's a middle grade book, and I felt like it being a middle grade book written in the 2000s, it really survived the test of time, and it's still, I think, a pretty solid book to read for a middle grade student. Then we have The Drowning Faith, Immediately, My Last Meal. This is Nezha's perspective on a collection of scenes from the Poppy War trilogy, and you already know I'm obsessed with him. My Last Meal, I can't get enough of this. I need the whole trilogy in his perspective. All right, now we're down to our last two with Marriage of Convenience. Marriage of Convenience would definitely have to go into bread and butter. It was a very fantastic read, a very quick read. I really liked the meat to the story. I felt like the story did a really good job expanding the world and really grounding us with the details of the world with good world building. I also really liked the explanation for this character's regression. I felt like the uniqueness of the regression in the isekai is what really makes a book stand out, and I felt like this one did a fantastic job with that. And in addition to this, I was pleasantly surprised that when the side stories were published, we got even more content expanding on the world itself. So bread and butter, I wouldn't say it's technically my last meal, even though the romance in here was good. I wish there was a little bit more. I gotta be honest. I'm a sucker for a lot of romance. We are finally at the very last book. We have One Dark Spark, and I think it's questionable flavor. This is actually my first fantasy in getting back into reading, and it has to do with this girl who lives in like an ancient time library, and a dragon escapes from one of the book, and the dragon is another dark, handsome, hot man, and that's all I really remember to it. The thing was a little bit too on the nose. It's a little bit too quirky, and it was definitely a unique world, but it wasn't the most fleshed out. It was very contained into this setting that they set up to us, and I wish we got more. And I think we are done. Oh my god, I can't believe I went through all of this. I'm willing to bet that it is going to be an hour-long video, so I hope you guys enjoyed me walking through all of the books that I read in 2024. For sure, for sure some of the books you guys haven't seen, especially the ones in January and February. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little snippet. And with that, I think I will wrap up this video here. Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end of this very, very long video. As you guys all know, I just recently celebrated my 1 year on BookTube. So thank you so much for just watching me, clicking on this video. And if you guys want to help me get to my 1,000 subscriber goal, definitely make sure to click the subscribe button. And if you're already subscribed, just know that a comment or a like will go a long way on my channel. And with that, I conclude this 2024 tier ranking list. And hopefully I will see you guys back again next week for a new video. Bye!